from the Mercy One studio.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. It's time to hear from the top Christian litigators in the nation who have come forward to tell us the truth and help us defend our faith.
Hear ye, hear ye. All rise. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano, is in session.
And good Thursday morning from the Mercy One studio in West Des Moines. As we are speaking to you right now, there is a press conference being held on the steps of the Supreme Court building where the Democrats are announcing their plan to add 4 new justices to the Supreme Court. That is what we call court packing. And next week we're going to have Tom Jipping from the Constitutional Law Center at the Heritage Foundation on at this hour to discuss that matter. Gina, how are you this morning? Now that we announced what we're doing next week and what the Democrats are doing in Washington.
You might have scared a bunch of listeners away.
Well, now they better come back next week and hear that. Yeah, because this is a very dangerous activity they are involved in. It's called court packing, and it's a power grab is all it is.
Well, it seems to me the timing is very interesting. There's a couple of studies out I shared with you this morning,
yes,
and we'll discuss those on the show maybe next week or maybe the following.
We can,
right, that shows that the courts have been giving good treatment. The studies want to say that the people of religious values have been treated very favorably in the courts since the appointment of Amy Coney Barrett.
Right.
And I think that many people, as we've talked on the show, think of people of faith as bigots and hateful. And
racists.
And racists.
Mm-hmm. And homophobes.
Right.
I know all the names.
All those words. And I think that's their solution to having their own way, is to pack the courts and come back to a sense of liberalism.
Right, and like I say, it's a power grab. They'll have the House, the Senate, the White House, and then whoever they want to put in the Supreme Court, because 4 new justices would dramatically change the balance of the court.
Yeah, and I imagine we would have quite a bit of radio material, show material.
Yeah, we'd have to go on every day. You want to do a daily show now?
We definitely would. It would. I think it would probably come to that. And I think that it's interesting that these actions have equal reactions and often come back to bite people in the butt, for no other way of saying it. By having these kinds of decisions in our legislative bodies can, they at this point it may put someone in favor, but it may come back to put them in disfavor at some point.
When you're talking about the composition of the Supreme Court, you kind of have to talk long term. You can't look at a short term, immediate response to suit your individual fantasies right now. Because if you do that, then you're kind of biting off your nose to spite your face. Because you're right, that will come back to haunt you, and a legal articulation is going to be the same, or should be the same, no matter who is involved and what the issue is, how you apply the law. And sometimes we have to accept the fact that the law may not be applied the way we would like it to, but in the long run, there's a fairness to that. And that's why there's such a thing as precedent. They're looking at what they have done in the past, and they're following along to make the law somewhat more predictable. So, again, what happens when you're looking at the Supreme Court, if you make the decision that, well, we got to change these guys, we got to add these guys because of these new things that we want done, that's very short term, and it's going to wreck the court. It's going to wreck people's faith in the entire judicial system.
I kind of see it a little differently. By doing this, it's not like an executive order. You're right. Nothing happens immediately. The minute we fill the court doesn't mean that laws are overturned and rulings are immediately struck down. And I have seen where Supreme Court justices have quite a bit of influence on the bench, on their peers on the court. And I also have a very strong faith in God, and his hand in all of this is there and works in mysterious ways. And I wonder sometimes where our legislative body tries to take control, that really the control comes from above.
Yeah, it does. It does. But one of the other things you want to remember about the court is the court decides what cases it wants to hear. There are only very few cases that it actually has to hear. So the selection of which cases to hear is going to be critically important when you're putting together a Supreme Court, because you don't get the ruling in a case unless the court hears it. The lower court ruling will stand. And so if you repack the court like is suggested, there might be a different category of cases that will be selected to hear, which again is going to could change the federal common law.
There's a lot of what ifs in there.
There is, and so
I think the most important thing is the intent at this point. You know, the court hasn't changed; it is what it is. But it's the chest beating of our legislative body to make changes that give them more power.
Yeah, and the court
the
is supposed to be
issue.
there to prevent that, to check that power grab.
Certainly.
Yeah. And so we will see what happens. But anyway,
we'll
that's
watch
next
that press
week.
conference.
The press conference is going on right now, and we will watch that and follow up. At least we've got one guest for next week that's going to talk about that.
It'll be an interesting
right.
show.
And we're
but
talk
we have
about
a good one today,
we
too.
got a couple of things to talk about today, and we will bring those up right after these messages. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio.
For Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning is provided by Blessman International. Blessman International partners with volunteers and donors to provide sustainable programs for children in South Africa by leading a 12-day, all-inclusive experience sharing the heart of Christ with vulnerable children in South Africa. Teams are forming to do something significant in an African child's life. Learn more at blessmaninternational.org. That's blessmaninternational.org. Thank you, Blessman International, for your support of Iowa Catholic Radio. Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the Morning provided by Bell Construction.
Bell Construction is a roofing company. They specialize in residential re-roofs, like commercial jobs, and have the experience to meet all of your roofing needs with personal service. With Bell Construction, the owner will come to your home or place of business in person to inspect and ensure the quality of work that you deserve. They pride themselves in working with you on a personal basis and making sure you are satisfied. Bell Construction, 515-963-4494. Bell Construction.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and the Uncommon Good provided by Mercy College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
This is Bo Bonner.
And I'm Dr. Bud Marr from the Uncommon Good.
Mercy College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Mercy College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu.
Thank you, Big Red Q Quick Print, for underwriting the sports report. Family owned and operated since 1980, Big Red Q Quick Print is a full-service print shop ready to help you with all your printing needs with speed and accuracy. Forms, manuals, brochures, letterhead, envelopes, business cards, custom invitations, design, and bindery. Big Red Q Quick Print, located across from Merle Hay Mall. Online at bigredq-desmoines.com. Big Red Q Quick Print. We make printing easy.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Catholic Women Now provided in part by Permar Security, providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. Permar Security is a Catholic-owned family business supplying security systems, access control systems, video surveillance, fire alarm systems, and video doorbells. All alarm systems are monitored out of their monitoring center located in the state of Iowa. Permar Security, 515-244-5660, permarsecurity.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Faith on Trial provided by Paul Martin and Paul Mitchell, owners of Imogene Ingredients. Imogene Ingredients supply specialized feed ingredients for livestock and pet diets to improve maternal and young animal health in both conventional and organic production. And we're back. We're joined now by Bryan Neihart, an attorney with the Alliance Defending Freedom. And Bryan, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Certainly. We're glad to have you. The photographers, I guess it's in the state of New York, are facing another challenge by people that are putting the interest of same-sex weddings over the conscience rights of individual merchants. So why don't you, if you can, give us the thumbnail version of what is going on in New York. It is in New York, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Emily Carpenter is a photographer in Western New York who wants to use her wedding photography to celebrate an idea consistent with her beliefs about marriage. And that idea is that God designed marriage to be between one man and one woman. And so just like a painter who uses a paintbrush to create a painting, Emily uses her camera to create beautiful images of weddings celebrating the idea that marriage is between a man and a woman. But New York's laws actually prohibit Emily from operating her business consistent with her faith or creating these photographs consistent with her religious beliefs. And in fact, New York compels Emily to photograph and create photographs celebrating same-sex marriage because she does so for marriages between one man and one woman. And if she refuses, New York can impose ridiculous penalties on her. It can, for example, fine her $100,000. It could throw her in jail for up to a year. And it can impose other penalties that would ruin her business. And so Emily has filed this lawsuit to protect her First Amendment right to create messages consistent with her beliefs.
Now, just real quick, is there a stay or anything on this right now so that she can still take her photographs as she wishes while the case is pending?
We've asked the court to stop New York from enforcing its law against Emily while the case is pending. And we expect to be before a judge sometime in the next several months to be able to argue and explain how the law violates Emily's First Amendment rights. And at that time, the judge hopefully will stop New York from imposing the law while the case continues.
So currently, she's, I guess, out of business.
She continues to operate her business. But she's refraining from doing certain things that she otherwise would do because of her fear of being prosecuted under New York's law.
Yeah. Now, this isn't a unique case. It seems to me that over the years, especially with ADF, you've handled a lot of these cases. I know you were the ones that represented Jack Phillips and Masterpiece Cake Shop that went up to the Supreme Court. What is the fallout of all this? Because it seems to me that, this has gone on in Arizona, it's gone on in the state of Washington, it's gone on in a number of places, and I'm not sure that people are kind of getting that message that came from the Supreme Court in Masterpiece.
Well, you're exactly right that state and local governments across the country have been using laws like New York's to threaten and to prosecute people of faith simply because they want to operate their businesses and create artwork consistent with their religious beliefs. And so as you mentioned, Jack Phillips and Masterpiece Cake Shop, he's been sued 3 times because of his religious beliefs on marriage and on what it means to be a man and a woman, and has put his business on the line every single time. And there's other cases like that across the country. And so what that says is that Emily faces a real threat here of New York using its law in a similar way to prosecute her and punish her just because she believes that marriage is between a man and a woman, and wants to use her artwork to promote that idea, to promote to the couples that she works with and to promote to the public that marriage that God designed marriage to be between one man and one woman, and that idea should be celebrated.
Now, in this case, the law also prevents her from stating what her views are on marriage.
That's correct. Yeah, that's another egregious feature of this law and another way that it violates the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects us from the government compelling us to say something that we don't want to say, but it also protects us from it also allows us to say things that we do want to say. And in this case, New York's law actually basically puts a gag order on Emily and prohibits her from being able to explain her religious beliefs about marriage and why she can only use her artwork to celebrate the idea that marriage is between one man and one woman.
Gina, did you?
Well, we already discussed the topic of the enforcement of the laws during the process of this case. Right. You've asked for a stay or a halt to those laws while this is being adjudicated. Have you had any ruling on that halt, or is it currently she can't do her work?
Yes, we filed this case last week, and so we're still waiting for the court process to play out so that the judge will eventually impose a stay in New York from enforcing its law. But no stay has been entered at this point.
Mm-hmm. And this is in a federal court.
That's correct. Yes,
right,
yes, that's federal.
To rule on the state laws, right? So, from the articles that I've read, and there's been quite a bit written about this case, I can't help but believe that this case is, this ruling against Emily and her business by the state of New York is almost she's being used as an example for the rest of New Yorkers. You know, like, don't do this or we will come after you. The law is very vague, and you wouldn't know when you were stepping over the line.
That's right. And in fact, New York has actually already used this law to prosecute business owners who share Emily's beliefs about marriage. And so you're exactly right that what New York's law does is it says that if you believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, then you have basically three choices. And these are the choices that Emily faces. You can either A, violate the law, you can B, violate your faith, or you can C, close down your business entirely. And those choices are unconstitutional, and Emily has filed this case to present another option, and that is to be able to operate her business consistent with her faith in the public sphere, and that's a right that the First Amendment protects. The First Amendment protects the right of people to be able to advocate for their views on marriage or other subjects in the public, and to be able to try to persuade people about why those beliefs should be followed.
So where are I tried to look up the New York law because I wondered how people of faith, people with religious beliefs, what their protections are against discrimination in the New York statutes.
Well, the New York statute does include religion as a protected class, but it's important to remember that in this case, the law actually has many exemptions already that are built into the law. But the law does not exempt people like Emily who oppose to creating certain messages and promoting certain messages because of their religious beliefs. And that's another way that the law violates Emily's rights under the free exercise clause of the First Amendment. This law is not what is called neutral and generally applicable, meaning that the law has many exceptions, and so the law violates Emily's not only her free speech rights but also her free exercise of religion rights as well.
Now, is there any talk, I'm assuming that, well, maybe take a step back. What is the state of the law in this issue, especially after Masterpiece Cake Shop? What has the Supreme Court said that can be done, cannot be done?
Well, the Supreme Court has affirmed again and again that speakers like Emily have the right to refrain from promoting messages and ideas that violate their religious beliefs. And that comes from a case in the 1990s called Hurley, and that was a decision that was reached 9-0. And what that says is that, again, the government can't force speakers to say things that they disagree with. And what the Supreme Court in Masterpiece said, and that decision also was a 7-2 ruling, which is important to note. And what Masterpiece said is that the government must respect the belief, like Emily's and like those held by countless other Americans, that marriage is between one man and one woman. But essentially by punishing Emily for holding the belief and for wanting to advocate and create artwork consistent with the belief that marriage is between one man and one woman, New York is ignoring Masterpiece and ignoring these First Amendment precedents that protect Emily and protect her business.
Okay, that brings me up to another question then. And this has been making the rounds in judicial opinions lately, especially in the area of the school. And that's the issue of qualified immunity for the officials that are needlessly interrupting her First Amendment rights. Because if she is not doing weddings now, if there's no stay on the enforcement of that, she's going to be damaged. And since the law seems to be, anyway, fairly clear that she's in the right here, those officials that are threatening to shut her down, does she have recourse now against them individually?
That's a good question. That's a complicated, somewhat complicated legal question. But in this case, This is actually a pre-enforcement challenge, which means that she hasn't been actually prosecuted by New York. And so in this case, we've asked for a couple of things, which we have not asked for damages for certain reasons. But one of the things that we have asked for is an injunction, a permanent injunction, and what that means is that it would a ruling in favor of Emily in this case would stop New York from ever enforcing its law against Emily, so that she could continue to operate her business consistent with her beliefs, so that she could be free from the threat of punishment, to be able to create photographs celebrating marriages between a man and a woman.
And then would the injunction, if you received it, the permanent injunction, would you ask that be applied to anybody who's similarly situated?
In this case, we've asked that it be applied to Emily and to her business specifically.
Okay. So it would be possible then for the state of New York to threaten somebody else, even if you won this case and got that injunction for her?
Yes, it would be possible. But again, as you know, the principles that are set forth in certain cases apply beyond just the parties in the case.
Right.
And so the principles that would apply to Emily would apply to other artists in New York. And that's an important point. You raise an important point, because the principles that protect Emily and protect Emily from being able to explain her religious beliefs free from the fear of government punishment apply broadly to speakers of all types in New York and around the country. So, for example, the same principles and idea that protect Emily would prohibit the government from forcing a Democratic speechwriter from creating a speech for a Republican politician, or many other examples, regardless of where a speaker falls down on a particular issue. The idea that the First Amendment protects Emily's speech applies broadly and protects everyone, not just Emily.
Right, yeah. But I guess my concern here is that you've got a lot of petty administrators out there that are really knuckleheads that will say, well, that case doesn't apply to me because I'm not, this is an Emily that we're dealing with, so we're going to go after this other person anyway.
Well, certainly these cases are going on across the country, as you mentioned, in Jack Phillips. We have other cases involving photographers, for example, Chelsea Nelson in Louisville, Kentucky. And in that case, a judge did stop Louisville from enforcing its law against Miss Nelson while the case was ongoing. But eventually we're hopeful that the Supreme Court will be able to affirm this principle in this context, which is that the government cannot use laws like New York's to force speakers to promote messages that violate their beliefs or that contradict their values. And the government cannot restrict people of faith from explaining their religious beliefs in the public sphere.
I would assume there's a lot of, not only a lot of interest in this case among the general public, but also among different legal entities. And I'm wondering if you've got amicus briefs that have been filed in your case. I know it's not an appellate level case yet, but it's not unheard of to see people weighing in on the district court level.
You're exactly right. We haven't in this case before, but in other cases that we have, for example, in the Chelsea Nelson case that I mentioned, we did have amicus briefs, and amicus briefs are just simply briefs that are filed by other entities that are in support of one party or the other. And in that case, we did have several briefs that were filed on behalf of Ms. Nelson, that agreed that, hey, the government can't use laws to punish people because of their beliefs or what they want to say or what they cannot say.
Yeah, in these cases, it's the usual suspects, I suppose, that file all these amicus briefs with in cases involving religious liberty. Gina, did you have something?
Well, no. The main thing I'm interested in is if Emily is mandated to take these photographs against her beliefs, would she also be mandated, under the argument, she would also be mandated to take photographs of all kinds of weddings that are outside of her beliefs, whether it's like a satanic ceremony or perhaps she may judicial, secular ceremony in the courthouse. Would that stand to reason?
Yeah, or they're going to do a pornographic wedding.
Right.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of deviations from her beliefs and values.
Well, I think that's right, and just like I mentioned, the same principles that protect Emily protect everyone. The same, the government could use the same logic it uses to punish Emily to punish people of all types, and that's that's a really important point because This case is not just about Emily's speech, but really it comes down to a fundamental issue. And that issue is that artists should be free to choose the messages that they promote and that they don't promote. And so whether an artist has a religious objection to creating a certain photograph or a certain type of artwork, or whether the artist has a moral objection or even a stylistic objection. You know, an artist doesn't want to create a photograph that has a different style than the type of style that the photographer wants to normally promote. All of those things are protected by the First Amendment, and artists should be free to choose how they want to use their artwork and how they want, and the types of messages that they want to promote through that artwork.
And I think we ought to point out, while we still have a few minutes left, that the Alliance Defending Freedom is one of the leading law firms that handles these cases, and they do so on a pro bono basis to the client.
Yes, that's right. I thank you for pointing that out. And if your listeners want to learn more about Alliance Defending Freedom,
that's just what I was going to ask. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, they can go to adflegal.org and learn more about this case, and as well as the other cases that we have going on across the country in this area as well as other areas.
And they can also find a place to send some spare change if they want to support your.
Oh, that's right.
And that's always important. All right. Well, we'll check this out. We'll follow it, and we'll see how it goes. But you said the next hearing was in a couple of months. Did you say?
The next hearing hasn't been set yet, but I expect that it will be sometime over the next several months.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll follow that and maybe have you back when you win that case. Hopefully you will.
Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
God bless you. Thank you for joining us today. That's Bryan Neihart from the Alliance Defending Freedom. And we will be back after these messages. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and the Uncommon Good provided by Meese College of Health Sciences, where you can chart your course for more.
This is Bo Bonner.
And I'm Dr. Bud Marr from the Uncommon Good.
Meese College provides unparalleled clinical rotations, hands-on learning, accelerated education, and flexible schedules. Since 1899, Meese College has been transforming students into healthcare professionals. Guided by Catholic values, our faculty put classroom theory into practice. Students are prepared for roles in service and leadership throughout their own careers.
Learn more at mchs.edu.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Dowling Catholic Sports is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Craig Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at 60th and Ashworth in West Des Moines. 515-440-4610 or online, ashworthvision.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Catholic Women Now provided in part by Permar Security, providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. Permar Security is a Catholic-owned family business supplying security systems, access control systems, video surveillance, fire alarm systems, and video doorbells. All alarm systems are monitored out of their monitoring center located in the state of Iowa. Permar Security, 515-244-5660, permarsecurity.com.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the morning is provided by Five Sons Naturescapes. Five Sons Naturescapes is a Catholic veteran-owned family company providing premium outdoor landscaping, clean up and restore outdoor living space with retaining walls, privacy fencing, pergolas, paver sidewalks, and patios. Issues with soil settling and water around the foundation and yard? Five Sons Naturescapes can grade and install drainage tile to help. Five Sons Naturescapes online at fivesonsnaturescapes.com.
Here's your forecast on Iowa Catholic Radio. We still have cool air moving in from the northwest, and that'll keep our temperatures in the 50s through the upcoming weekend. We'll be in the low 50s today, with clouds sticking around, mostly cloudy overnight, and our low in the upper 30s. And then tomorrow we're expecting a high in the mid-50s and a mix of sunshine and clouds. The weather is brought to you by Divine Treasures, a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. This is meteorologist Steve Hamilton on Iowa Catholic Radio.
And you're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we have with us now Sarah Perry, who is a legal fellow at the Edwin Meese Center for Legal and Judicial Studies at the Heritage Foundations. Sarah, how are you this morning?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, certainly. You wrote an interesting article that appeared a couple of days ago about what some school districts are doing with their children and the children that want to be identified by the opposite gender. And unfortunately, as we see this once in a while, what happens is they don't tell parents what is going on. Right. So why don't you give us the background of this story that you wrote on this particular school district, and then we'll talk about how that affects everybody else otherwise.
So in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is not too far from where I am in Washington, D.C., educators, through a Montgomery County school board policy, are actively keeping information about children who want to transition genders. They're keeping that information from parents. In fact, they have a policy in place in which they lay out specifically what information is not to be shared. So two families specifically who are suing under pseudonyms, obviously for fear of reprisal. We know that there's not much that we can say about the transgender movement that won't get us pilloried, because that's where we are culturally right now. They are suing under pseudonyms, and they've decided to bring suit against the school district. I actually was in recent contact with the attorney who is representing them, and they are in the stage of briefing what's called the motion for summary judgment. In other words, you make your entire case in documents that you submit to the court. So we're eagerly waiting to see what happens in this case. But it is part of a very disturbing national trend. In fact, when I reported on this initial case, I was shocked to learn that these types of policies are far more widespread than I think any parent in America would automatically assume.
Yeah, that's why this was so interesting to me, because I noticed you mentioned the case in, is it Madison, Wisconsin?
Yes,
early on, we had those attorneys on with us discussing that, and I've seen these things pop up over and over and over again, and so I thought when I saw your article that this would be a good time to take up this issue again and talk about it, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are listening to this program that have not heard of this. So they just assume that everything is going hunky-dory with their kids at school, and it's not.
You know, back in 2020, there were a group of parents who were suing to keep their schools from hiding kids' gender dysphoria, and they're transitioning through what are called social outlets. So they call it social transitioning. In other words, the student wants to be known by a different name. They want to identify with a different gender. They want to use a different bathroom, and in some instances even compete on a different team. And the schools facilitate all of these requests without giving the information to the parents. Wisconsin's probably the one that your listeners may be most familiar with. Right. That was back in 2020. But this actually is a coast-to-coast phenomenon. And among other school districts, the New Jersey Department of Education's guidelines, now this is for the entire state, instructs teachers on how to avoid inadvertently disclosing a transgender student's status to his or her parents. Now, that's for the entire state of New Jersey. LA Unified School District out in California tells teachers how to provide services for transitioning students who don't have what are called supportive parents. And, of course, the National Education Association, the country's biggest labor union, even though it masquerades under the notion of education, is encouraging teachers across the country who are members to hide students' gender identity from parents unless required by law.
That is when they're required to go back to work.
Okay, well,
absolutely.
So
Go ahead,
we've got at least one lawyer here, and Sarah, I don't know your background, but I can say that the National Teachers Association says unless it's required by law, but we do have laws that require sharing information with parents, do we not?
Right. Right. In fact, it's part of the reason that this family in Montgomery County, Maryland, sued because, among other claims, they are alleging violation of what's called FERPA. So that's the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. And I had occasion to work on this when I was senior counsel at the Department of Education in their Office for Civil Rights. And it is actually a law designed to be parent-friendly. It weights the scales in favor of parents because our Constitution and over 100 years of jurisprudence have recognized the Supreme Court is in the parents are in the best position to parent and to educate and to make determinations about their child's health and mental well-being. So to unilaterally take that away through a school board policy throughout the entire country is patently unconstitutional. It violates FERPA, and it throws notions of rationality to the wind because it puts the parents in a backseat position and declines their ability to find out this really compelling, very important information about what their children are doing at school.
Yeah, it's terrible. They're not only putting them in the back seat, they're blindfolding them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
they are actively going out of their way to obfuscate and make sure that they are not being truthful about what's happening. And in these pleadings, one of the things that the county school board has responded with is claims that, listen, we're trying to protect children who don't have unsupportive families at home. Some of these kids who are transgender, they don't have parents that are buying into this, and so we do what we can to protect them. The bottom line is that until a child is 18, FERPA governs. It is a right held by the parents, not held even by the child. In fact, a child doesn't have a legal right to their own records under FERPA until they reach the age of majority at 18. So this law was designed specifically to protect parents like those who are bringing suit in Montgomery County.
Oh, sorry. My question more goes to the 14th Amendment. It also provides rights to the parents. Is that
right? Right, exactly. So the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution provides that parents will not, now this is again by application, doesn't say this specifically for any of you who don't have your tiny Constitution handy like I do in my little red book.
Good for you.
It really
put
is
it next to
one
your
of those.
Put it next to your Bible that you're carrying.
Well, I tell you what, those are two. I am not joking when I say they are both where I work in my kitchen. They sit next to me at the table side by side.
Good.
But I have to tell you, I do think that this is a situation where these parents are being deprived of due process. They are being unilaterally eliminated from information, from participating in a benefit of public education, which they are entitled to. Their tax dollars go to pay for the public education that their children are receiving. And the school itself is turning around and eliminating parents from the process of being privy to this information. So there are constitutional violations here. There are violations of FERPA here and in the state of Maryland, much like the U.S. Constitution. It violates our state constitution as well. So I am hopeful that this court will do the right thing during the process of this case and that they will come to the same determination that we know to be appropriate, which is keep parents involved, keep them informed. And for anybody who's listening who might have kids in public school, I know, for example, where we are, private school is not an option, and we have 3 children in public school. I am the parent that is the nightmare parent, right? The one you see coming down the hall, and you want to close your school books because you're not really sure if you want to get involved in a heavy-duty discussion. But for those parents who have kids in public school, I encourage you to be an advocate for your children. Ask questions, make a nuisance of yourself. You are paying through your tax dollars for the education that your children are receiving, and you have a legal right to examination of their records at any time. These are not situations in which the parents can be legally kept out. And more importantly, I think if we see more cases like this, there will be ultimately a swell of legal support, and we'll see the right outcomes in some of these federal court systems.
Do they, in Maryland, do they tell the kids not to tell their parents?
They do. In fact, what the children are told is that if they feel that they are unsupported at home, and this is the term, right? So this is the flashpoint for a lot of these policies are, do you feel supported at home? Well, I would imagine a lot of kids would have anxiety about telling mom or dad that they feel as though they are a boy when they are actually a girl. That's understandable, but a child, a teenager's perception of what support looks like cannot be the fulcrum on which parental rights circulate.
So true.
You cannot substitute the advice, counsel, and guidance of a parent for what a teenager feels at the time. And listen, we've all been teenagers. My children don't believe it, and I have 2 teenagers and 1 preteen. They're convinced that I was just always 47, and I was never younger and cool like they are. So, of course, what do I know? But I can't encourage your listeners enough to really be proactive. And for those who are still virtual schooling, I know some schools across the country are still virtual schooling. Ours are in a hybrid model where it's 2 days in school and 3 days online. Use that time to listen to what your children are being taught, what they are communicating with their teachers. This is an unprecedented opportunity to be involved in what your children are being taught and what values they are catching.
And I'd like to highlight, as a parent, the damage that we're doing to these children when we tell them, do not tell your parents. That sets them up for abuse throughout their young lives and early adulthood when they are being told by someone else that their parents are not to be trusted. And it grooms them to step right into danger all throughout this, whatever it is they're going through.
Absolutely. And, grooming is really an appropriate term here because we use that very often when we write policy commentaries and op-eds on the gender identity cult. And that really is what it is. It is very much a cult mentality. There is no dissent. There is no opportunity for debate. These are matters of settled science that we are somehow now being told are up for question. That, in fact, what we've been taught for decades in public schools, for centuries in human existence, has all been a joke. It's been a lie. And, in fact, there is no biology binary, and there is no male and female. There's the spectrum of possibilities. So we use the term grooming because very much there is a notion of trying to infuse the culture with these ideas that are not only patently false, they are incredibly damaging to kids who are already in a position of questioning who they are in the world. Adolescence is tough for anybody, but it's especially tough if you feel like you don't belong in your own body. But left alone, 80 to 90% of adolescents will stay in their biological sex without seeking any treatment, will make peace with it, and will go on to live healthy, happy, and productive lives.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we're just seeing too many people willing to intervene and turn a profit from unhappy kids.
Yeah, grooming is an interesting word, too, because it's used to deal with child predators, people who are preying on children and with
very much so.
Pornography and sex and whatever, yeah.
Well, exactly, and I think that you raise a good point. It's not... once they become accustomed to this, don't tell your parents, don't trust these people,
right.
Then they are more likely to be groomed for all kinds of disordered behaviors.
This stuff seems to be moving so fast, Sarah. It seems to me
it really is.
It's just a short 18, 19 months ago when the questions that these school boards were taking up is, do we allow these kids that claim to be transgender, do we allow them in their bathroom or their locker room or whatever that they want to go to? And now it's all hush-hush. They're going to do it,
Yes.
but they're not going to tell anybody. At least before, parents had some type of a warning about what was going on, but now it's being kept under the rug. Nobody is talking about it. You can't tell the parents, and that's really scary. That the teaching establishment seems to have the idea that they are the ones to make all the choices for the parents, and not to consult with the parents on these things.
Yes. Yes, I would 100% agree with you, and I think that's a function of where we are culturally and where we are biblically. We understand that, listen, things are going to speed up, and we're in a position as the saints to stand firm and say we're not going to let our children be taken over and influenced by ideas and individuals and concepts that are anathema to what we know about the nature of God and how he creates us to be male and female. It is not only a violation of parental rights, it's a violation of our conscience rights as Christians. So it really is something to watch very closely and to be ever vigilant about. And also, I have to tell you, and I've gotten to this, I think, in my own professional career, and, Washington is known for slinging mud. We have become accustomed to not being liked, and we're okay with that. Yeah. I would much rather my children be safe than my children be liked, and that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, well, this is the cancel culture now. If you disagree, they try and rub you from society, take you off Twitter, take you off social media, get you fired from your job, ruin your business, and whatever. We are out at the end of our time period here, Sarah, but I would like to ask you if any of our listeners would like to follow you and your writing, where would they go?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Sarah P. Perry, or you can go to thedailysignal.com and search for Sarah Perry, and you'll find all of my writings there.
And I've seen a number of them there, too, so that's a good place to start.
Sarah with an H. Just one point.
You got it.
Right. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. We certainly appreciate your time, and we wish you Godspeed with all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
And you're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio, and we will be right back after these messages.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Dowling Catholic Sports is provided in part by Ashworth Vision Clinic. With 2 licensed optometrists, Barbara Sheets, a Dowling graduate, and Dr. Craig Harper, the Ashworth Vision Clinic team provides complete eye exams, contact lenses, glasses, glaucoma testing, and pre- and post-operative care. Ashworth Vision Clinic is located at 60th and Ashworth in West Des Moines. 515-440-4610 or online, ashworthvision.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Catholic Women Now provided in part by Permar Security, providing security solutions for homes and businesses since 1953. Permar Security is a Catholic-owned family business supplying security systems, access control systems, video surveillance, fire alarm systems, and video doorbells. All alarm systems are monitored out of their monitoring center located in the state of Iowa. Permar Security, 515-244-5660, permarsecurity.com.
Thank you, Dental Associates, for underwriting Dowling Catholic Sports 365. With over 40 years' experience, Dental Associates is a group dental practice with the mission of promoting optimum health and well-being to all patients, providing preventative, restorative, and cosmetic dentistry for the entire family. Message underwritten by Dr. Kenton Gleichman, Dr. Steve Karbaka, and Dr. Ben Nagel. Dental Associates, addressing your smile, needs, and dreams. Online at DesMoines-DentalAssociates.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and John Leonetti in the morning is provided by Five Sons Naturescapes. Five Sons Naturescapes is a Catholic veteran-owned family company providing premium outdoor landscaping, clean up and restore outdoor living space with retaining walls, privacy fencing, pergolas, paver sidewalks, and patios. Issues with soil settling and water around the foundation and yard? Five Sons Naturescapes can grade and install drainage tile to help. Five Sons Naturescapes online at fivesonsnaturescapes.com.
Support for Iowa Catholic Radio and Storm Alert Weather is provided by Divine Treasures. Divine Treasures is a Catholic book and gift store serving the Des Moines community for over 25 years. Divine Treasures, 5701 Hickman Road, Des Moines, 515-255-5230.
Thank you, Skeffington's Formal Wear, for sponsoring Dowling Catholic High School football. In business since 1951, Skeffington's Formal Wear offers quality service, style, and selection, providing tuxedos, suits, and casual groom attire for weddings, proms, and any other special occasion. Skeffington's Formal Wear, with convenient locations in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Davenport, Coralville, and Ankeny. All locations are family-owned and operated by members in their respective communities, fitting you for life celebrations. Online at skeffingtons.com.
And we're back. You're listening to Faith on Trial on Iowa Catholic Radio. Gina, interesting cases today.
Yeah,
and topics.
Deja vu, though, right? I feel like we talk about these things every 6 months, 4 months, if they come up in a different state or different jurisdiction. And I'm seeing a trend, though, that these cases, while they seem very different, parental rights and artistic rights, these cases are very similar in that I think these laws and regulations and policies are meant to silence those of faith. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to believe in the truth.
I think you're right, at least on the right track in saying that. What they're attempting to do, I guess, in a way, is to cancel people that disagree. And again, as we've talked in the photographer case, it's similar to the florist case. It's similar to the baker's case. It's similar to there was even a case out, I think, in Arizona, where it was a calligrapher that did special wedding invitations in calligraphy, and she wouldn't do them, or it was two women that were partners. They would not do them for a same-sex couple, and that was a violation of a local ordinance out there. So there are attempts, I think, from the other side to say, look, we want you to be able to accept this, or at least somehow show the world that it's being accepted. And if that runs against your beliefs, your Christian or Catholic beliefs, or whatever religion you belong to, that's difficult for somebody to accept. And we were talking in the break, there's a difference between certain types of services that you perform for somebody than others. Mm-hmm. Right. If you want to go into a Pizza Hut and order a pizza, and you can't say, well, I'm not going to make your pizza because you're gay, that's illegal, and that should be stopped. But it's certainly different when you're talking about something like marriage, or in the schools. You're talking about what Sarah was talking about, trying to influence the children or indoctrinate the children without letting the parents know, because the people that are doing this know better than a parent does, or so they think. Mm-hmm. And you see the power going kind of higher up, where now you're going to have the U.S. Department of Education. You've got state departments of education, like in New Jersey, that just talked about with Sarah, that are making these rules, and sometimes they're making them because it's easier for a state or the federal government to do them because they have control over everything. Whereas if you leave that in local control, the parents have more control over the locals than they do over the... there was something I saw on television this morning where one of these groups of citizens have gotten together and they're petitioning for a recall election on the school board. And they're going to have their own candidates to replace them if they have enough signatures but it sounds like the community is irritated enough about what's going on in their schools that they're ready to, blow the lid off everything.
Now that's the America I know.
Right, but you can't do that if the power is in Washington or the power is in the state capitol. That's more difficult to do. And that's why a lot of these local ordinances and local things, especially local schools, are so important. And why it's important, maybe somebody wants to run for the local school board, because this is where everything is happening.
That's right. And we talked about this earlier also. The first level of authority is our government in those cases, and not our God.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes a big difference in the way we legislate when we identify our ultimate reality as the government.
Where is your allegiance? When I was teaching constitutional law in college, I put a chart up. Where are the hierarchy of the laws? And you get up and to the top, and you have the federal government. Well, isn't there another higher level? God is a higher level.
Exactly. Which brings me to my other...
And mom is an even higher level.
Always. In every house.
In every household, yeah.
I'd like to believe it is anyway. The other thing that's important is that our listeners remember to pray for these very brave people who have stepped forward, like Emily. The things that she's doing and that these parents are doing to bring the truth to light is hard work, and we need to support them with our prayers.
Right, and they're going to be criticized by a lot of people. They're going to lose a lot of friends. They may lose business, but they're standing up for something they believe in, and that's important, especially these days.
Right.
We have a lot that's going on, and of course, we have now the court packing attempt.
Next week, stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned, because we're going to talk about that next week. All right, I think it's about time we end, since I'm looking at the clock, and Jimmy behind the glass is waving at me that get
Do you
the
have
heck
a
out of
prayer?
here. Yes, I have a prayer, and I forgot to ask you for yours. So
I'll say two
say
today.
two next week. Yeah, okay. Say, Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray, and do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, thrust into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen. For Gina, Noah, and myself, thank you for listening today. We will be back next week with another edition of Faith on Trial. Until then, have a blessed and peaceful week.
Our freedom of conscience and religion is being challenged by laws and regulations imposed by secular society. Faith on Trial with Defender of the Faith, Deacon Mike Mano. Faith on Trial, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Iowa Catholic Radio, iowacatholicradio.com, and the Iowa Catholic Radio app.
Support for Faith on Trial and Iowa Catholic Radio provided in part by Imogene Ingredients.